Outside the window, the world moved with haste. Cars zipped past, tall men in tailored suits hurried along, eyes locked on glowing screens, chasing time, ambition, and something else. Something elusive, intangible, yet oddly familiar. Her life, too, looked flawless from the outside. Born into a prestigious family, Ariana's father was a revered medical tycoon, her mother a socialite who never missed a gala or elite charity event. And Ariana? She was the best graduate from a top-tier university, now a highly sought-after surgeon whose income could afford nearly anything. Success? Undoubtedly. But happiness? That was the lingering question. Her phone buzzed on the table, snapping her thoughts. A message from her mother. "Don't forget the gala dinner tomorrow night. All of your father's colleagues will be there. You must look perfect, as always." Ariana sighed, her gaze drifting back to her reflection in the window's darkened glass. Look perfect. Those words had haunted her like a persistent echo throughout her life. No matter how drained she felt or how overwhelmed she became, perfection was her only acceptable state, elegant, intelligent, composed, and never, ever a disappointment. Her thoughts wandered to childhood. Her mother had always demanded the best: top grades, impeccable manners, flawless social grace. An A meant a question: why not an A+? A first-place trophy was met with a proud smile, followed by, "Don't let it get to your head." Tomorrow is a new challenge. There was no tolerance for weakness, no space for failure. Now her heart felt like an abandoned room, hollow and echoing. She rose from her chair and walked to the window. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, brilliant but cold, mocking her triumphs. How long had she felt this emptiness? How long had she drowned it beneath work, accolades, and luxury? Suddenly, a strange desire bloomed inside her, a craving to escape, to disappear, if only for a while. One name surfaced in her mind: Bali. She had read about it. A place of untouched beauty, not just for its tropical beaches and emerald jungles, but for its stillness, its spiritual magnetism. Without hesitating, she opened her laptop and searched for the earliest flight. Bali, tomorrow morning. She clicked buy. No second-guessing, no careful planning. Ariana Smith, known for her meticulous nature, had just made the most impulsive decision of her life. Closing the laptop, she exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. She didn't yet know what she was seeking, but she knew she had to find it. The scent of the ocean welcomed her the moment she stepped out of Bali's Ngurah Rai airport. Ariana inhaled the warm, salty breeze, letting it wrap around her face. It felt nothing like the icy gusts of New York. This was the first place that didn't expect anything from her. No deadlines, no appointments, no masks. She paused, taking in the vibrant scene. Tourists laughed freely, cameras flashing, clad in floral shirts and sun hats, their faces alight with joy. They seemed weightless, unburdened. Ariana, however, still carried something inside, something heavy and invisible. A driver held up a sign. "Miss Ariana Smith." She nodded and approached. "Welcome to Bali, Miss Smith. Your villa is ready. The journey will take about an hour." She managed a faint smile and slid into the car. As the vehicle glided through Bali's streets, her eyes remained glued to the windows. The city pulsed with color and life. Markets buzzed, vendors shouted joyfully, children played in narrow alleys, tourists sipped fresh coconuts under the sun. Gradually, the city's noise softened, replaced by rolling green rice paddies, towering palms, and birdsong. Eventually, they arrived at a peaceful villa nestled beside endless emerald rice fields. The staff welcomed her with gentle smiles and helped her settle in. She placed her suitcase in a corner and stepped onto the balcony. No skyscrapers, no sirens, no relentless notifications, just stillness. She stood quietly, watching the sunset transform the sky into a canvas of gold. A gentle breeze caressed her face as she sat on a bamboo chair, sipping warm tea offered by a kind staff member. The calm was foreign but soothing. Then, suddenly, a sound rippled through the air, melodic, powerful, hauntingly beautiful. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Outside the window, the world moved with haste. Cars zipped past, tall men in tailored suits hurried along, eyes locked on glowing screens, chasing time, ambition, and something else. Something elusive, intangible, yet oddly familiar. Her life, too, looked flawless from the outside. Born into a prestigious family, Ariana's father was a revered medical tycoon, her mother a socialite who never missed a gala or elite charity event. And Ariana? She was the best graduate from a top-tier university, now a highly sought-after surgeon whose income could afford nearly anything. Success? Undoubtedly. But happiness? That was the lingering question. Her phone buzzed on the table, snapping her thoughts. A message from her mother. "Don't forget the gala dinner tomorrow night. All of your father's colleagues will be there. You must look perfect, as always." Ariana sighed, her gaze drifting back to her reflection in the window's darkened glass. Look perfect. Those words had haunted her like a persistent echo throughout her life. No matter how drained she felt or how overwhelmed she became, perfection was her only acceptable state, elegant, intelligent, composed, and never, ever a disappointment. Her thoughts wandered to childhood. Her mother had always demanded the best: top grades, impeccable manners, flawless social grace. An A meant a question. Why not an A+? A first-place trophy was met with a proud smile, followed by, "Don't let it get to your head." Tomorrow is a new challenge. There was no tolerance for weakness, no space for failure. Now her heart felt like an abandoned room, hollow and echoing. She rose from her chair and walked to the window. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, brilliant but cold, mocking her triumphs. How long had she felt this emptiness? How long had she drowned it beneath work, accolades, and luxury? Suddenly, a strange desire bloomed inside her, a craving to escape, to disappear, if only for a while. One name surfaced in her mind: Bali. She had read about it. A place of untouched beauty, not just for its tropical beaches and emerald jungles, but for its stillness, its spiritual magnetism. Without hesitating, she opened her laptop and searched for the earliest flight. Bali, tomorrow morning. She clicked buy. No second guessing, no careful planning. Ariana Smith, known for her meticulous nature, had just made the most impulsive decision of her life. Closing the laptop, she exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. She didn't yet know what she was seeking, but she knew she had to find it. The scent of the ocean welcomed her the moment she stepped out of Bali's Ngurah Rai airport. Ariana inhaled the warm, salty breeze, letting it wrap around her face. It felt nothing like the icy gusts of New York. This was the first place that didn't expect anything from her. No deadlines, no appointments, no masks. She paused, taking in the vibrant scene. Tourists laughed freely, cameras flashing, clad in floral shirts and sun hats, their faces alight with joy. They seemed weightless, unburdened. Ariana, however, still carried something inside, something heavy and invisible. A driver held up a sign. "Miss Ariana Smith." She nodded and approached. "Welcome to Bali, Miss Smith. Your villa is ready. The journey will take about an hour." She managed a faint smile and slid into the car. As the vehicle glided through Bali's streets, her eyes remained glued to the windows. The city pulsed with color and life. Markets buzzed, vendors shouted joyfully, children played in narrow alleys, tourists sipped fresh coconuts under the sun. Gradually, the city's noise softened, replaced by rolling green rice paddies, towering palms, and birdsong. Eventually, they arrived at a peaceful villa nestled beside endless emerald rice fields. The staff welcomed her with gentle smiles and helped her settle in. She placed her suitcase in a corner and stepped onto the balcony. No skyscrapers, no sirens, no relentless notifications, just stillness. She stood quietly, watching the sunset transform the sky into a canvas of gold. A gentle breeze caressed her face as she sat on a bamboo chair, sipping warm tea offered by a kind staff member. The calm was foreign but soothing. Then, suddenly, a sound rippled through the air, melodic, powerful, hauntingly beautiful. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, but she knew she had to find it. The scent of the ocean greeted her like an old friend the moment she stepped out of Bali's Ngurah Rai airport. Ariana inhaled deeply. The air here was rich, warm, salty, alive. Nothing like the sharp chill of New York. This place, she realized, asked nothing of her. No appointments, no flawless appearances, no demands to impress. She paused and let her eyes take in the vibrant surroundings. Tourists in colorful shirts laughed freely, unburdened, their joy captured in the flashes of cameras. Children darted between stalls, barefoot and glowing. Everyone moved with ease. Ariana, however, still felt the weight of something, unseen but heavy, lodged deep inside her. A man stood with a sign, Miss Ariana Smith. She nodded and approached him. "Welcome to Bali, Miss Smith. Your villa is ready. The drive will take around an hour." She offered a faint smile and slid into the car. As they drove through narrow streets, her eyes remained glued to the windows. The island breathed with color and life, markets bustling, vendors calling out with cheerful voices, locals walking with unhurried steps. Slowly, the city dissolved into cascading rice fields, towering palm trees, and birdsong. When they arrived, her villa waited, nestled beside endless waves of green. The staff welcomed her with warmth and serenity. She dropped her luggage in a corner and stepped out onto the balcony. No towering buildings, no flashing screens, no urgent notifications, just quiet. She stood still, watching the sun melt into the horizon. The sky transformed into a canvas of gold and crimson. A gentle breeze brushed her cheeks as she sat on a bamboo chair, sipping the tea offered by a kind attendant. The stillness felt unfamiliar, yet deeply comforting. And then it came. A sound that floated on the air, melodic, haunting, powerful. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. She froze. The call to prayer drifted across the rice fields, weaving through the swaying trees cradled by the wind. It wasn't loud, but it carried a grace, a weight, that echoed somewhere inside her. She'd heard this sound before, faint and distant, back in the city. But here, in this place of raw peace, it resonated differently. It felt like it was speaking to her, not in words, but in sensation. Ariana closed her eyes. The sound washed over her like warm light. A serenity, gentler than the tea, deeper than the quiet, settled over her soul. When the last note faded into silence, she opened her eyes slowly. The sky now glowed in deep amber and orange hues, as though heaven itself had been brushed across the horizon. "What was that?" she whispered, not out of curiosity, but from a place within her that had just begun to awaken. That night she couldn't sleep. Lying upright in bed, eyes wide open, she replayed the Adhan over and over in her mind. Somehow it had etched itself inside her, illuminating a hollow space she hadn't realized existed until it was no longer empty. Why had it moved her so deeply? Why had that voice offered a comfort her wealth and career had never managed to touch? She reached for her phone, fingers hovering above the screen, hesitant. Islam call to prayer meaning. She pressed enter. And slowly she read. About the Adhan, not simply as a call to perform rituals, but as a sacred reminder, a reminder that God is greater, that life is fleeting, that peace begins by turning inward and upward. Ariana blinked. Her heart shifted almost imperceptibly. She wasn't sure what it all meant yet. But one thing was certain, she needed to know more. She placed her phone aside, reclined against the pillows, and let the night carry her into something new, something she couldn't name yet, but needed to follow. At first, Bali had seemed like an escape, just another exotic location to breathe, to reset. But now, perhaps it was the beginning. Islam is not merely a religion, it is a way of life, a compass that guides the soul toward balance between this world and the next. She stared at the sentence, her eyes lingering on the final words, this world and the next. Her entire life had revolved around the former, career, wealth, accolades, recognition. She had climbed every rung of success with precision and grace. But the next? That was a mystery she had never stopped to consider. Ahmad reached for another book on the shelf. If you're really curious, he said, handing it to her, this one might help too. It was a copy of the Quran, translated into English and accompanied by commentary. The cover was a deep, dignified blue, adorned with intricate gold Arabic calligraphy. The Quran, she murmured, almost reverently. Just uttering its name stirred something within her, something profound, weighty, and sacred. Can I even read this? She asked quietly, unsure. Ahmad smiled warmly. Of course. The Quran is for everyone, not only Muslims. Anyone searching for truth has every right to read it. She received the book into her hands with deliberate care. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she simply held it close to her chest. It felt like peace, like something rare, like something she had been unknowingly yearning for. Later that day, Ariana asked Ahmad to take her to a local market. She wanted to see life beyond the polished resorts and curated experiences, to witness the ordinary beauty of the people and the culture. They rode through narrow village roads, passing temples, rice paddies, and small roadside shops. The morning air was fresh, scented with incense and spices. The market was a riot of colors and movement, vendors shouting cheerfully, children darting between stalls, the aroma of food wafting through the air. But just as they approached the entrance, the mood shifted. From a nearby alley, two masked men suddenly emerged. One of them lunged, yanking Ariana's bag from her shoulder with violent force. She screamed, "Hey, stop!" But it was too late. They vanished into the crowd, leaving behind confusion and fear. Panic clawed at her chest. Her bag was gone, along with her phone, her passport, her wallet. Everything that connected her to her old life had vanished in an instant. She stood there, stunned, helpless. A crowd began to form, strangers trying to comfort her, but she felt completely alone. In her moment of desperation, only one name came to mind: Ahmad. He was the only person she trusted here. With trembling hands, she borrowed a phone from a kind local and dialed his number, the only one she had memorized. The seconds felt endless. And then, his voice. "Ariana?" "What happened? Where are you?" Her voice cracked. I need help." Minutes later, she sat in a modest roadside shop, clutching a glass of water that remained untouched. Her hands shook. Her reality had shattered. Just hours earlier, she had been a respected doctor from New York. Now, she had nothing. No money, no ID, no way to reach her family. Then, the familiar hum of a motorbike cut through the noise. Ahmad. He spotted her immediately, rushed to her side, and knelt beside her, his voice calm and full of concern. "Ariana, are you okay?" She looked up at him, pale and wide-eyed. "I lost everything," she whispered, her voice fragile. "My passport, my bag. I don't know what to do. I'm scared." Ahmad offered a gentle, reassuring smile. "Don't worry, you're not alone. I'll take you somewhere safe, a place of peace. No one will ask questions." Without a word, She stood and followed him. The ride felt different this time, longer, heavier. She clung to the back of his jacket, not out of fear of falling, but because for the first time she felt truly exposed. They stopped in front of a small mosque, humble in structure, yet serene in presence. The gates were open, welcoming. The courtyard beyond was shaded by tall trees, and the white walls glowed softly in the afternoon light. Ariana's eyes widened. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ahmad turned off the engine. "You can stay here," he said. "There's a guest room in the back for travelers. No one will judge you. You'll be safe." Then he looked at her with quiet sincerity. "Would you like to come in?" She hesitated, her heart racing. It felt as though she were standing on the edge of something unknown, something sacred. But deep within she knew she was ready. "I want to," she said softly. He nodded. Together they stepped inside. As Ariana crossed the threshold, something shifted within her. The air inside the mosque was cooler, hushed, and wrapped in stillness. Her feet met the polished marble floor, smooth and chilled, grounding her. In one corner, a few women were kneeling in prayer, their faces peaceful, their presence unshaken by the outside world. Ariana stood still, letting the silence surround her like a soft embrace. All her life she had known pressure, deadlines, expectations, perfection. But here she saw something different, something pure. These people didn't know her title, her income, or her resume. They didn't care. And yet they offered her comfort. In her world, kindness came with strings attached. Here, it was given freely. That night, Ariana lay on a simple bed in the mosque's guest room. The wooden ceiling above her creaked gently in the wind. The events of the day echoed in her mind, the terror of the theft, Ahmad's kindness, the quiet grace of the mosque. Then, like a thread tugging gently at her heart, she remembered the Quran Ahmad had given her. She reached for it and slowly turned through its pages. Her eyes landed on a verse. "Indeed, with hardship comes ease." Surah Ash-Shar 94:6. The words hit her like a gentle wave. She whispered them aloud. "In hardship, there is ease." She leaned back against her pillow, eyes fixed on the ceiling, the verse echoing softly in her mind. For the first time in years, Ariana felt something she had long forgotten. She felt unafraid. She no longer feared sleeping alone. There was a calmness now, a sense of quiet companionship in the silence. As she lay beneath the simple sheets, she let the words from the Quran carry her gently into slumber, like a lullaby whispered by something far greater than herself. She awoke before dawn. At first she couldn't tell why. The room was still, cloaked in soft darkness. Then she heard it again, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The dawn adhan. The call to prayer drifted through the mosque's speaker like the first light of morning breaking gently through the sky. It didn't enter her ears like sound usually did. It entered her heart. It was less a call and more a presence wrapping around her like something warm, something eternal. She sat up slowly, her head tilted as she listened. The call washed over her room like a tide. Her chest felt lighter. Her mind was still. Something deep inside, a part of her, long frozen, was beginning to thaw, warmed by a light she didn't yet fully understand. From the small window above her bed she saw movement in the courtyard. The women of the mosque were quietly making their way to the ablution area. Their motions were unhurried, full of grace. They washed their hands, faces, and feet with gentle devotion, then stepped into the prayer hall in serene silence. Ariana watched them from a distance, transfixed. She didn't know exactly what they were doing, didn't understand all the meanings, but she understood the feeling. Peace. Drawn by something unspoken, she rose and moved quietly toward the doorway of the prayer hall. Peeking inside, she saw the women begin their prayer. They bowed. They prostrated. They moved in unison with a stillness so profound, so reverent, it gave her goosebumps. There was beauty in their surrender, a kind of strength in their humility. When the prayer ended, Ariana found herself sitting alone in the open courtyard. The breeze was cool against her skin, the early morning sky beginning to blush with light. Her heart still raced, stirred by something she couldn't yet name. A few moments later, a gentle woman with warm, kind eyes approached and sat beside her. "Good morning, dear," the woman said, smiling. "You must be our guest." Ariana nodded softly. "Yes, I'm Ariana." The woman's smile deepened. "My name is Siti," she said. "I've lived here for many years. I've seen many people walk through these doors, people searching." She paused and placed her hand gently over Ariana's. "Have you been searching, my dear?" Ariana hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. "I think, yes, for a long time. I've tried to fill the emptiness with everything, success, money, recognition. But none of it worked." Siti's expression turned tender, her eyes filled with quiet wisdom. "Sometimes," she said, "when the heart is ready, Allah knocks. All we need to do is listen." Ariana looked down at her trembling hands. Something strange, yet familiar, was rising in her chest, as though her soul was responding to a long-forgotten truth. Is this that moment?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Siti nodded gently. "Yes, my dear. When your heart begins to soften and something inside you starts to pull you toward truth, that is Hidayah, a gift from Allah." Tears welled up in Ariana's eyes. "I'm scared," she whispered. "If I follow this, if I surrender to this feeling, I don't know how my life will change. My job, my family, my image, everything could fall apart. I don't know if I'm strong enough." Siti squeezed her hand with quiet strength. "The journey toward the light is never without challenges," she said. "But remember, every step you take toward truth is protected. You don't need to rush. Just listen to your heart. Peace doesn't lie. It will guide you." Ariana closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the pull of her past life. The weight of ambition, perfection, and pressure had loosened. That evening, after sharing a simple meal with the women of the mosque, Ariana sat alone on the front porch. The sky stretched wide above her, sparkling with stars. The air was crisp, fragrant with night blossoms. Inside, the Isha prayer had begun. She watched from the threshold as the congregation stood shoulder to shoulder, their heads bowed, their hearts seemingly anchored in another world. She whispered to herself, "What are they feeling? And why do I want to feel it too?" Beside her, Siti appeared once more, this time holding a small worn copy of the Quran. Its cover was aged, its edges frayed, but it held a quiet beauty. "Are you ready?" she asked gently. Ariana looked at her, eyes searching. I want to understand. I want to know what this is, what I've been feeling." Siti opened the book and pointed to a verse. "Whoever Allah guides, there is none who can misguide them." Surah Az-Zumar 39:23. Ariana read the words, but this time she didn't just read them, she felt them. Ever since she stood in the rice fields and heard the adhan for the first time. Ever since she stepped into the mosque and felt the silence embrace her. Something had been guiding her. "I think," she said slowly, "this is the first time in my life I'm not afraid to believe in something greater than myself." Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Siti placed a hand on her shoulder, her voice soft and full of love. "That is Hidayah, my dear. When Allah calls, all we must do is answer." Ariana looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed to shimmer more brightly now, like witnesses to her awakening. For the first time, she felt ready, ready to surrender, ready to begin. Indeed, those who believe and whose hearts find tranquility in the remembrance of Allah. Truly, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest. Surah Ar-Ra'd 13:28. They stood in silent prayer inside the mosque, bowing, prostrating, surrendering their hearts fully. Ariana watched them quietly, her gaze drifting to a little girl beside her mother. The child's movements were clumsy and imperfect, but filled with sincerity. She mimicked her mother's actions with innocent devotion. Ariana smiled softly. There was something so whole in that image, so untouched. Since the moment she first stepped into this mosque, Ariana had remained an observer, standing on the edge of something sacred. But now she felt herself moving. She was no longer just watching. She was being drawn in. Slowly, hesitantly, she mirrored the others. She bowed, lowered herself. And then, gently, she let her forehead rest on the cool surface of the prayer mat. The moment her forehead touched the ground, something inside her cracked open. Tears spilled from her eyes, unstoppable. Her body trembled with quiet sobs. She couldn't explain why. She didn't need to. For the first time in her life, she felt free. It wasn't about rituals. It wasn't about obligation. It was release. Ahmad stood nearby, silently. He didn't speak. He didn't approach. This moment belonged to her. When Ariana finally lifted her head, her cheeks were wet with tears. Her voice trembled. What is this?" she whispered. Ahmad smiled gently. "This is submission, Ariana," he said. "When we prostrate, we let go of everything. No one can force it, but if it brings you peace, let your heart guide you." "Lead the way. To pray for ye," Ariana whispered, her voice steady yet reverent. She looked at Ahmad, then slowly lowered herself into a bow once again. This was no longer just curiosity. It was surrender. The days that followed unfolded gently, like a soft breeze through the halls of the mosque. Ariana began to rise before dawn, stirred not by an alarm, but by the call to prayer, adhan, which now felt like a sacred breath awakening her soul. She embraced the rhythm of worship, her steps guided not by habit but by yearning. She stood beside the women during prayer, mimicking their motions, learning with awe and quiet devotion. In the afternoons, she began volunteering at a modest clinic adjacent to the mosque. She cleaned wounds, soothed fevers, and spoke kindly to anxious mothers. Elderly villagers came in for their aches and ailments, and Ariana treated them with the same gentleness she once reserved only for her most critical patients back in New York. This life was humble. It lacked prestige, titles, or applause, but for the first time, Ariana wasn't chasing anything. She was simply being. One evening, as golden sunlight spilled over the tiled roofs and bathed the courtyard in a warm glow, Ahmad joined her on the porch. They sat in peaceful silence until he turned to her and said softly, "You've changed." Ariana nodded, eyes fixed on the setting sun. "I've found something I didn't even know I was looking for." He hesitated before asking, "But your family? Do they know?" She looked down, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her skirt. "No. I'm scared. I don't know how to tell them." Ahmad was quiet for a moment, then said, "The truth is rarely easy, Ariana. But they're your family. You don't have to make them understand it all. Just let them know you're okay." That night her hands shook as she dialed the number. Her mother answered on the third ring, voice anxious. "Ariana, where have you been? We've been calling nonstop. Your phone's been off. We were worried sick." Ariana closed her eyes, trying to find strength. "I'm still in Bali, Ma." There was a pause. "When are you coming home?" She looked up at the stars glimmering above, silent witnesses to her confession. "Ma, I need to tell you something." Silence thickened. I've become a Muslim." A sharp intake of breath. "What did you say?" "I said I've become a Muslim, Ma. No one forced me. No one convinced me. I felt something real." Her mother's voice cracked. "You don't know what you're doing. You've been brainwashed." "No, Ma," Ariana said, voice shaking but firm. "For the first time, I've found peace." "Peace," her mother repeated, bitter and disbelieving. "Was the life we gave you not enough? The home, the education, the name?" "I know this is hard," Ariana pleaded, tears spilling freely now. But I made this decision with my heart wide open. I searched, I questioned, and I found something real. Another silence, this one longer, colder. Then her mother's voice, distant and harsh. If you still choose this, then you are no longer part of this family. The line went dead. Ariana stared at the screen, unable to breathe. The silence her mother left behind screamed louder than any words. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the floor, sobs racking her body. Everything she had ever known, her family, her identity, her very place in the world, had been torn from her with one decision. Yet even in that devastation, one thing remained: peace. It glowed softly within her like a flame that refused to be extinguished. She looked up at the night sky through her tears. "Ya Allah," she whispered, voice trembling. "Guide me." The next morning, her steps toward the mosque were slower but steadier. Her heart still ached, but she carried it with quiet resolve. At the door, Mrs. City was waiting. One look at Ariana's face, and she said nothing. She simply opened her arms. Ariana collapsed into them, crying not from heartbreak this time, but exhaustion. When she finally looked up, Mrs. City whispered, "This is just the beginning, my dear. You can't change hearts, but you can keep showing yours and never stop praying for them." Ariana nodded, wiping her tears. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew she couldn't turn back. The days passed quietly, filled with new routines and healing moments. Ariana poured herself into the clinic, her hands wrapping bandages, and her words bringing comfort. The supplies were basic, but the love was endless. She no longer felt the pull of the world she had left behind. This was where she belonged. One morning, after finishing her rounds, she stepped into the sunlight. The breeze was soft, the birds sang like the morning adhan, and beside her stood Ahmad, 2 cups of tea in his hands. "For you," he said gently. She took the cup, their fingers brushing briefly. They sat in comfortable silence. "You seem calmer," Ahmad said at last. Ariana nodded. "I'm beginning to understand. My family may never accept my choice, but I can't let their rejection define me. This peace I've found, it's real." Ahmad smiled, a tenderness in his gaze that made her heart flutter. "That's because Allah is guiding you, and once He does, nothing else matters." She looked into his eyes and, for the first time, recognized something new. A warmth, a quiet strength. Love, perhaps. She didn't know when it had begun. Was it when he found her after the robbery, when he sat beside her in silence while she cried, or when she saw him in prayer, so deeply connected to something unseen? Whatever it was, it had grown. But before she could quiet the thought, Ahmad spoke. "I don't know how to say this properly," he began, voice soft but sure, "but I want to propose to you." Ariana's heart stopped. "What?" she whispered. "I've seen your heart, Ariana. I've seen your sincerity, and I love you. I want to walk this path with you." Her tears returned, but this time they were born of certainty, not sorrow. "I accept," she said, her voice barely above a breath. The wind picked up gently, wrapping around them like a blessing. From the porch, Mrs. City watched with a smile. "Marriage," she said, "is worship. It's not just love. It's about guiding each other towards what's good." Ahmad nodded. "I want a simple marriage, no extravagance, just the blessings of Allah." Ariana smiled. "That's all I want too." Their hearts were full, but peace, like faith, is often tested. The very next day, while tending to a patient, Ariana's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Mother. Her breath caught. She stepped outside and answered. Her mother's voice came, no longer sharp with rage, but tired, softened. "I've booked you." Ariana hesitated. Her eyes met Ahmad's. He gave her a quiet, steady nod. "I'll wait for you." She turned away, her heart a battlefield of sorrow and strength. She had to see them, not to be persuaded, not to seek approval, but to show them she was still Ariana. The flight from Bali to New York stretched like eternity, not because of the distance, but because of what awaited her on the other side. Outside the window, the sky churned with emotion. Clouds drifted like restless thoughts, and winds tugged at the plane as if echoing her own turmoil. But Ariana sat still, unmoving. In her bag, a small Quran. In her chest, a heart anchored in faith. She didn't know what her family would say, but she knew this: she would not turn back. Because in the depths of her darkness, she had discovered light. And no matter what awaited her in New York, that light would stay with her, always. "I don't know if my family will ever accept me again," Ariana whispered to herself, tears threatening to fall, "but I believe you won't leave me." The cold wind of New York slapped her face as she stepped out of the airport. The city that once felt like a familiar embrace now seemed distant, cold, foreign. In the past, a private driver would be waiting, holding a placard with her name, the car warm, leather seats soft, comfort wrapped around her like armor. Not this time. There was no one. She pulled her coat tighter and hailed a taxi on her own. The familiar streets of Manhattan blurred past the windows, but everything felt surreal, like a dream she had outgrown. Her heartbeat quickened as the car turned onto her childhood block. Her family home still stood grand and untouched. Majestic white pillars, perfectly manicured hedges, and a front door that once welcomed her like royalty. But now she felt like a trespasser. She knocked. The door opened. Her mother stood there, expressionless, cold. "You came," she said flatly. Ariana swallowed. Her mother's eyes scanned her, lingering on the soft hijab framing her face, as if trying to spot the daughter she once knew beneath this new exterior. "He's still alive," her mother said after a pause, referring to Ariana's father, "but I doubt he'll be glad to see you." "I just want to see that he's okay," Ariana replied gently. Her mother stepped aside without a word. Inside, nothing had changed, but Ariana had. The grand chandelier still glittered overhead. Velvet drapes framed the tall windows. The faint scent of imported candles filled the air. It was opulent, immaculate, and yet it no longer felt like hers. Upstairs, her father lay in bed, pale, fragile, a thin line of IV tubing at his arm. Their eyes met. His once commanding gaze now held only pain, and not the pain of illness, but betrayal. "What are you doing here?" His voice was weak, but laced with disappointment. Ariana's heart trembled. "I came to see you, Papa." He let out a bitter laugh. "You left. You abandoned everything we gave you, everything we built. And for what?" She stepped closer. "I found peace." His eyes narrowed, sharp even in their sorrow. "You destroyed our name for your so-called peace." "No, Papa," she whispered, tears brimming. "I finally found who I am." He turned his face away, and in that silence, Ariana felt the door close, not the physical one, but the one that mattered most, the one to his heart. She walked out slowly, descending the same marble staircase she had once flown down as a little girl, barefoot and laughing, past the family portraits, past memories that no longer belonged to her. Outside, the wind stung her cheeks as she stepped into the waiting taxi. At the airport once more, she sat alone at the gate. No checked bags, just a single carry-on. Nothing left to prove, nothing left to stay for. Her family had rejected her, but as she looked out at the endless sky, she remembered the verse that had carried her through every storm. "Verily with hardship comes ease." Tears streamed down her cheeks, not of despair, but of trust, because she knew she had never been alone. Allah had been with her every step of the way. And in Bali, someone was waiting. The plane touched down in Denpasar under a sky of soft blue. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, warming her face gently, but her heart was heavy. She rolled her suitcase out of Terminal K, her steps slow, burdened by the weight of goodbye, and then she saw him, Ahmad. Without a word, he walked up to her, took the suitcase from her trembling hand, and whispered, "Let's go home." Home. She had never heard the word sound so beautiful. As the motorbike sped through the breeze, the wind kissed her face, drying her tears. They weren't tears of loss anymore. They were traces of growth. They arrived at the mosque just before sunset. As soon as Ariana stepped into the courtyard, peace settled over her again, like a warm shawl around her shoulders. Mrs. City waited on the terrace. The moment her eyes met Ariana's, she opened her arms wide. "My child," she whispered as she embraced her tightly, "you've come home." Ariana broke down in her arms. That night, beneath a sky freckled with stars, Ariana sat beside Ahmad on the porch. "How did it go?" he asked gently. "They didn't accept me," she replied, voice barely audible. "My father, he wouldn't even look at me." Ahmad didn't say much. He simply sat with her in silence, holding her pain as if it were his own. Then he reminded her softly, "Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear." She nodded slowly, her heart bruised but beating with newfound clarity. Even when the world turned its back, Allah never had. And in that quiet realization, another truth began to rise within her, glowing, steady, undeniable. She wanted to live this life with Ahmad. A few weeks later, in a serene and intimate ceremony at the mosque, Ariana and Ahmad were married. There were no chandeliers, no grandeur, only soft prayers, warm smiles, and a gathering of hearts that had truly welcomed her. Ariana wore a simple white gamis, Ahmad a crisp cocoa shirt. And when they exchanged the sacred vows, ijab kabul, tears ran freely down Ariana's cheeks. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a beginning, a life built not on appearances, not on legacy or status, but on faith, sincerity, and love for the sake of Allah. When Ahmad gently held her hand, Ariana felt it deep in her soul. This was home. Not in the lights of Manhattan, not in the marble halls of her childhood, but here, in a place that saw her, accepted her, loved her. Under the starlit skies of Bali, Ariana smiled. She had finally found the happiness she had once chased through all the wrong doors, not in applause, not in perfection, but in the still, powerful peace that only Allah can give. "You a ticket back to New York," she said. "Come home, just for a while."